All right, everybody. No idea what happened there. Tried to make Arna the speaker, and the internet couldn't handle it.
Hey, hi Travis.
Arna, all right. Well, of course, we needed to have a little snafu to start things out there. But just for the recording's sake, I'll just say this real quick. So, obviously, thanks everybody for joining. But the key for this, weekly spaces, this new format for Arna and I is just to drill down on these topics. Everybody can read the articles, but it takes a little bit more to thread all these things together over the past few years. So that's the goal of these individual weekly spaces, and this one, obviously, the importance of Dubai, which Arna and I have spoken about for a long time. So Arna, I'll let you add your piece there.
Yeah, really exciting to see these test flights in Dubai. And I was a bit jealous when I also saw the interview in the hangar just next to the S4 talking about the service and how it will be implemented. So I did reach out, by the way, to Oliver Walker Jones. So in case he's listening, Oliver, we still hope to get that Joby interview and get Travis on site in California.
Yeah, no, would love to see a little bit further. I mean, obviously having the opportunity that kind of spurned our coming together in October 2022 to see inside the factory, and really it's remarkable once you see what they have built, and yet they're extremely humble and quiet, but producing, and that's obviously straight from Jobin. So to Dubai, as we saw, kind of interesting. Both of the lead U.S. eVTOL manufacturers, at least that are publicly traded outside of beta, had some action to end Q2, start Q3 in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So Joby proving out that they can fly full vertical takeoff and landing with transition flight, with pilots on board, multiple pilots, multiple flights. We saw from the competitor Archer just essentially flying VTOL but without the transition. Um, so a little bit more interesting. Obviously, there was a pilot, but so to Joby, obviously they proved, if they had the piece of paper in hand certification today, their aircraft is capable of flying with pilots and passengers from point A to point B. So, as we really actually look at what happened, Arna, sometime in the next 12 months, there's going to be passengers on board. That's what the messaging at least is. That's, no guarantees, not financial advice, but that's what the company is trending towards. What do you think that really means? Obviously, people want to have that exact date, but in terms of in the year from now, Joby will be able to unlock flying passengers for here until the foreseeable future. So I'd love to hear what you think that impact really is outside of the headlines.
So some sources have shared with us that there's a kind of three-stage approach. First will be regular flights with pilot only, followed by flights with unpaying passengers, and then followed by regular service paying passengers. So that's kind of the three-step approach from what we have heard so far of how the service will ramp up from now until Q2, Q3 2026.
Yeah. So, just for the perspective, everything now is about, obviously, if somebody has a plane and they fly it and they make a video about it, that's what kind of things have been lately. Somehow, still, Joby is performing with multiple aircraft, multiple countries, multiple locations, multiple pilots, and are compared with some of the other competitors in the space because they truly are just objectively, it is impressive, what they have done. And when you think about 12 months from now, that people will be on board, right? Paying or not. As an investor, of course, obviously we want to make revenue, but if there's paying passengers versus just passengers, because I think that's what a lot of the, doubts or hesitation about this, even service of quote unquote air taxis, But it's not going to matter if 6 months that there's people on there that are just other engineers, test pilots, people who've invested in the company, blah blah blah. If they're not paying, I don't really care for 6 months because they're going to unlock, whatever it is, 60 years of revenue and markets for the foreseeable future with this aircraft. Aviation, is for the most part what has connected the world to the level that it is. So, yeah, I think people are really sleeping on what's in front of us, but that's what's so exciting, because it will be shocking. Uh,
Yeah, and
go ahead, Arne.
yeah, so one of the news from the June 6th that hasn't hit the headlines as such that much is when the White House issued the executive order unleashing American drone dominance. And we're yet to see if there is any connection with the big, beautiful bill. I mean, this White House order basically also instructs the FAA to fast track approvals and routinely enable also eVTOL. So that's of course very relevant for Joby and Archer. But what we don't yet know is if Joby could secure funding from the big beautiful bill, and that's going to be very interesting in the coming months and weeks. And Travis, I just shared today with you the letter that Joby sent, which is kind of in a similar space positioning themselves.
Yes. So, obviously, getting another ahead of the FAA, it's been interesting how that has kind of evolved over time, that position. Had Whitaker was in there for, just a few months, it seemed like. But anyway, excited to, have a new head of the FAA. It seems like everybody's, on board and happy with that selection. So I think that's going to be positive for Brian Bedford. And then I don't have any background on him or whatnot, but I'm sure obviously Joby, and in particular their head of government affairs, Greg Bowles, who spends a lot of time. Actually, Joby has an office in DC, but obviously I'm sure they're well acquainted. What that means for us, and as you mentioned, kind of the big beautiful bill, and all these names are funny for this stuff, but the underlying that, I think, hopefully, somebody here in our community, Wags, who has put out a ton of great stuff of tracking flights, and even some that maybe he shouldn't have seen. And it's really exciting. He's got some insights on the government contract stuff, so I hope that he'll be able to kind of flesh out, maybe find some things that stick out to him that we might not, as a civilian, understand. But anyway, yeah, I mean, obviously, Joby's had, what, over 150 $1 million from Agility Prime, DIU, and other, assorted DoD enterprises over time. And I wouldn't presume that that slows down, especially as, essentially the bet that DoD was making. They make so many bets. They've made so many bets over the years over drone technology, et cetera, electric vehicles, that this one's going to be fleshed out and be able to service, a lot of different things. I think is really important, and somehow still underappreciated component of what Joby has done, the relationships they have now, and what they'll build forward. Because that's also going to tie back to Dubai, to keep it on the Dubai topic. Um, you know, the FAA, all their progress, they have said it. Joby has said it. GCAA and RTA have said it in Dubai, that all the progress that's happened thus far through FAA is essentially reciprocal, as is, to the Emirates. And then, where there's FAA, and, maybe it's slow, maybe it's a, XYZ organization, give it whatever colorful language you want to put. But for the most part, it's kept us safe in aviation. So it is still the world's benchmark. But the GCAA and RTA are going to run with it themselves. And I have
Travis,
full.
maybe you want to give a little bit of background for those not familiar with the terminology, that how this works with aviation, and that there's surprisingly few agencies across the globe that actually certify aircraft. So it's not like that you certify an aircraft in every single country, but there's, I think, if I remember correct, only three countries that are kind of seen as having the leadership here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, just quickly in the space. So you have in China, EHang, and they're the kind of first. eVTOL, doesn't fly transition, yada yada, no pilots, kind of more of a little tour thing. But that's obviously coming from the Chinese regulator. But that outside of that, it has essentially just been the FAA. Obviously each there's different countries and regions that work together and kind of different alliances, similar to what Joby just announced with New Zealand, Australia, Canada, UK. So, in terms of for that side of things, FAA certifies the aircraft. The rest of the world essentially says, "Okay, we trust you." And then recently, in particular to this, and we saw that from the Saudi investment announcement from ALJ, that they are going to follow. Saudi is going to work with Europe, and they're going to kind of have their own separate framework that's same but different compared to the FAA framework. But the good part is that even though I don't even think that divergence is a bad thing. There's all obviously it's standard versus metric and all that jazz, but I think for Joby, it really doesn't matter because they're positioned in every regulatory agency that is doing anything with electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft. Joby is not just had basic conversations; they're involved in all these markets. So Joby is
But
at the
Travis, the
forefront.
question here, of course, is could Joby in theory fly in Dubai without FAA certification?
Yes, they have said that on several calls. There's even been Q&A that kind of pressed them on that. I think part of the hesitation, obviously Joby's pretty coy with their how they break their news, but they don't. FAA still wants to be a part of it. Obviously, it's American company. American government's very focused on that. Obviously, in today's administration, that is a huge focus on the American company side of it. So I think there's probably some pleasantries that are being honored there. But in terms of FA will not, if they don't give it to Joby first, or Joby doesn't earn it or get it approved from FAA, that's not going to stop them. GCA and RTA, wherever FAA starts to slow down in the race, they're going to still be running at full speed ahead with Joby. So I know that's kind of a misconception. So thank you for pressing me to double click on that. But that's been abundantly clear from the company that FAA will not be the restriction. But I think the goal is to not think of it that they are a restriction. It's just these things are moving at different paces, different countries, different governments. It's not necessarily a negative skew to the situation.
Yeah, and the letter that Joby is now issued to the new head of the FAA, I just added that to the spaces as a comment. So if you want to check that out, and it just shows that Joby is looking to further increase the relationship with the FAA and just collaborate and position itself as an American company with a very good vertically integrated manufacturing base in the future in the US.
Yes, I mean, it's interesting that we see Dubai is really starting to get some legs, but then also Dayton, the facility that was there, the USPS that was converted. Obviously we saw pretty nice picture just that of the exterior had been painted. Also, there's been some early equipment and tooling manufacturing equipment that has been already taken into the Dayton facility. Then in Marina, we've seen even from, and like Mr. Max probably listening, that he's had some pictures. Some other folks have been by the facility in Marina, showing the pictures of that expansion. And then Paul Sciarra recently in an article with Paul Brinkman. And I posted, this, but there's a little nugget that Marina was going to be increasing to 25 to 50 aircraft as the capacity, and prior the expansion was to get it to 25. So that's a pretty cool thing. They've doubled their capacity, and I'm sure we'll probably hear a little bit more about that in the coming quarter if he was willing to go, in a printed article on that. But yeah, I mean that's super exciting for how many planes that they'll be able to service or hopefully make for Dubai. That could be an absolute surprise that everybody's focused on certification. That's the shiny object. We've talked about this offline. If Joby all of a sudden has a certification and they show up with 10 or 15 planes ready, I mean that's I'm not saying that's going to happen, but wow, what a surprise that would be. And it's not completely out of possibility. They did make enough parts to complete 12 aircraft. I went back and looked at some of the transcripts. Jobin did confirm that those parts are being used for testing, so it's not that they're in fully assembled aircraft, but they do have the parts. And since Joby has the most eVTOL made in the entire sector thus far with their fleet, and they've got 5 that are flying, I think they're as far ahead as they could be in that space. But yeah, excited to see what manufacturing and jobs and other things that'll happen here in the states. But that with the executive order, there were some carve outs that we had talked about that lifted some import restrictions or loosened them that will allow Joby to ship these aircraft around the world. So, again, all these things tie back to this is the importance of Dubai. This is where all this is going to be allowed to happen, and not in like a cavalier way or anything. This has all been planned. This is just, again, Dubai is a place that looks forward. I think there's a lot of misconceptions maybe about Dubai. People, if you go there, you can really, it's an incredible place, incredible people. The amount of ambition that they have there, it's kind of there's some American spirit ties to that. So pretty cool.
Yeah, and talking about ambition, we're yet to hear from Skyports. They're, of course, building one of the first vertiports there just across from the business terminal. And we would love to hear from them on what the timelines are. Still waiting to hear back from Skyports.
Yeah, they in the video that you had recently posted of a local Dubai channel that was interviewing Anton Corey, the head of Joby in the Middle East, kind of touched on that the Skyports, Vertiport, and those are some things that we're hearing as well, that's trending towards no issues at all to be ready Q1 2026. And that's alongside of when they plan to, from what we hear, have potentially the first early parts of Q1 that pilots would be flying out of that vertiport, which would be really cool. That's obviously turning a render into reality. And they've done it quite quickly because, again, RTAA is helping to sponsor that with Skyports. And if the regulator is that involved, that leaned in, that you'd probably put that in the tailwind category versus headwind. And so Skyports, I think, is going to be a sneaky, part. I mean, they've been around with Joby for quite some time, but the importance of that partnership with Skyports is going to be, sneaky to their success as well. They've got some things going on in the States, but for Dubai, obviously, that vertiport is going to be the crown jewel to be, the first one in the world.
Yeah, I really loved when they were talking about the integration with the Uber app, and that it's going to be front and center, enabling your trip all the way through, getting there, and then also getting to your final destination. So this kind of integration, um, good to hear that this is already in the planning and easy. We talked about that last time with Uber, that could be a good edge going forward. That if others then also enter the market later on, it will be a question of, okay, how well is your service also integrated, enabling access for customers to book your service?
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, maybe I've been going on a lot, but to double click, like, what do you think for how that'll shake out?
Yeah, I mean, I already put it out on Twitter that I think it's a really good edge for Joby and easy to overlook this advantage right now, given that we're so focused on certification and infrastructure, getting that in place. And of course, that's going to become relevant once the go-to-market happens. So yeah, but good to see Joby now being vocal about it, because over the last few years they've been very quiet on what they're doing on the software side, and it's good to see them being vocal, putting it out in the open. Um, as you said, they've been very careful in the past. So now being more vocal about this does show that they are getting ready for the go-to-market launch. At least that's my interpretation. Of course, 5 cents forward-looking statement. We will have to see.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think to that component, which is kind of interesting. People underestimate somehow again Joby and Uber, obviously that connection, but in particular the Elevate OS software. I have experience with this. At Blade, it was one of the first companies to be forward leaning into having an app and being able to book on demand, and they're still doing that today with rotorcraft, etc. So Joby with Uber Elevate, excuse me, was operating in New York at the same time, or Uber Elevate was, and then obviously Joby acquired all that information. But what they're going to be able to unlock with Uber is not just the rider piece, which is absolutely incredible that they're just going to turn on, instantly access to all these customers, but also the integration between the aircraft and the system and then the app. It's to make it seamless where the Uber that picks you up to take you that last mile is already waiting is again such a seamless component of really high end private aviation that's going to be more accessible for people. And that is another piece where software is going to actually make huge impacts operationally. But moreover, the really cool little nugget is the Elevate OS software that they'll be using in Dubai with Uber. Is also going to have some features that they're willing to, and that maybe it's the whole thing, maybe it's a piece of it, but they're going to sell that as a software as a service. So it's built in house, but it won't be necessarily and proprietary. But they will let other people use it, which would be funny if that'll end up being eVTOL or just typical Part 135 operators that exist today. They'll be able to use this. This won't be specific to eVTOL. It's aircraft agnostic. But
Yeah.
yeah, really exciting on the software side.
Yeah. So, and one thing we've now all learned, if you want to kind of position yourself as an aviation expert, you don't call it helicopter, you call it rotorcraft, huh?
Yeah, I mean that's just the tech. It's like airplanes are fixed wing aircraft, and it's also that's what the ratings are for the pilots. So it just helps to keep in line, and hopefully more people to learn about this. It's maybe we'll kind of wrap here, and you can give some final thoughts. But it's the cool part about this industry, right? It's maybe a lot of the people listening to this. This is a part of their daily life. They understand, how transformational this is, whether they think it's the investment or whatever. I focus on the company, but it is also investment. But the the average person has no idea what this is, and we have to kind of demystify and let people know, like a private helicopter is just a helicopter, and this is going to be that's the Stone Age version. This is going to be the future version, and that's why it's so exciting for everybody. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, some last thoughts on Dubai, maybe.
Uh, Hope to see many of you for as I said before, many hope to see many of you in Dubai then for the live service, and that's going to be an epic moment, and looking forward to what the FAA, the new head of the FAA, is going to put out in terms of his mission and his vision of where the FAA is going to be in the next 2 years, and if that has what kind of implications that will have on Joby. So looking forward to following that. Stay tuned, and Travis, speak again next week.
Yeah, we'll touch base again next week, and maybe that's a good topic we can kind of chew on a little bit more is certification, because with the new head of the FAA, I'm sure they'd love to have a nice feather in their cap of this really exciting piece of the puzzle, and he'll be on board for 5 years. That's what the term is. So yeah, I think we found next week's topic will be certification, FAA, GCA, RTA. Cool. Thank you, everybody. Great spaces. Sorry for the hiccup at the beginning, but yeah, looking forward to the next one.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, Arna.